Yes, for the age of Aquarius, nice song.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Aquarius is slowly going to be my favorite sign.
Hey, what up? Yeah, my other Aquarius friend Krista, she showed me so much kindness, and I'm like, you are Kursna. Like, I looked at the word Kursna and instantly thought of her face, like, Krista. I'm like, there's no way, no coincidences. You're Kursna.
Wow.
It's crazy. Like, I went out to the fire. We swam in the pool. Went out to the fire and shut off some fireworks, and it was like truly transformative and freeing. And I'm like, you changed my life, girlfriend. Like,
Nice. That was this weekend?
it was yesterday.
What?
Yeah, it's the lives on
Nice.
my Facebook. But
Nice.
yeah, it's
Speaking of
freaking
live,
amazing.
I think it's working now.
Swag.
You should invite her. Invite her to the chat.
She's in the group too. She's probably at work though.
All we needed was some amethyst. Perfect.
And
By the way,
Steven.
All right, I'm gonna share this to the group real quick, and then it's on like Donkey Kong. Does anybody still say that?
Gio,
I wanted to animate a music video to that song.
Which one?
do it. Do it.
It's a song called "It's On Like Donkey Kong" by God's Paparazzi. It's really ratchet. Yeah.
You have to do it. You have to do it.
Bet I'm gonna add it to my playlist.
I still need to pay you to do a unicorn T design for me. I mean, if you're into that
No
kind of thing.
doubt. Hell yeah. I gotta get back on
Do
the
it.
grind. My tablet's coming in the mail. Once I get that, it's on. It is on.
That's it. That's it. The
On.
opportunities are just flowing.
Dropping left and right.
Boom, boom.
Bada beanie,
I
bada
gotta
boom.
send you this link. Somebody sent me about it's like this smart paper notebook thing where you pretty much write on this notebook and you link it up to this app and it uploads automatically to Google Docs. But it's only like 20 or $30.
What the hell?
Yeah,
We
man.
move.
You can use it for art too.
What the hell?
We're moving fast, man.
For real. I can't wait to be like in the Halo age where we just got our freaking rocket ships and shit.
Oh
Yeah,
goodness.
right.
Face, man.
Yeah, you smoke some at the dark side of the moon. That'd be nuts.
Smoke some quantum weed.
Quantum weed.
Oh man. Then you gotta watch out for
Lotus.
space cops.
Cowboy bebops.
God damn it. Lord. Yo, you guys ever watch Midnight Gospel?
Yeah, I saw it. I kind of fell off like towards the middle of it, but otherwise it's just like I felt kind of more past it more than anything, you know. Like
You
I
gotta
knew
watch
more
the
than the
last
show.
episode.
I
You gotta watch the
did.
last one. Oh, okay, okay. I feel like that's where the real value was in the last
Okay,
episode.
I'll rewatch it.
The last one made me cry, I ain't gonna lie.
Oh.
No, it was hard to watch. It was definitely
That
hard
was,
to
it
watch.
was, it
Is that
was
the one with
real
his
tough.
mama or whatever?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, oh
Yeah,
my
yeah, I
god.
remember that one.
And then they turned into planets and the damn Ouroboros took her, the dark. Oh my goodness.
Oh man, that's how I felt yesterday, man. This shit's real. I think.
Don't give it away for those of us that hasn't seen it.
Oh, I'm sorry, but
My
there's just so
bad.
much in there. There's so much in there.
Yeah, you're not gonna remember what we
On
said.
cinema. Yeah.
I think that Duncan Trussell, if you ever watched like any of his interviews with Joe Rogan, it's like
Oh yeah.
he's really like good at articulating this stuff. And I think that he's responsible for waking up a lot of people during this time too with his
Yeah.
show. To be honest.
Underrated.
Yeah.
Duncan
wonder-
Trussell is super underrated.
Seriously.
I was blown away that they even like that Netflix even like helped him produce the show and everything. Like he had like some of the podcast members that were on there were like Jason Louv and like Duncan Trussell and interviewed what's his name? Damien Eccles, one of the West Memphis Three that wrote High Magic. Yeah, like
Nuts.
it's like crazy that it's the exposure now, and I have friends that I would be a little uncomfortable talking about anything like this. They like bring up like ceremonial magic now to me.
It's crazy, right? That episode made me get Damien Eccles' book, or his
Oh, yeah?
audiobook. High Magic is pretty good. It's pretty good.
All right, I think that we are on board here. So this is meeting number 3 about initiation into Hermetics and the mystical Kabbalah. So I guess to start off, does anybody have anything special they want to share about what they read so far? This always happens. Nobody wants to be first.
I'll start. I guess I'll start off with a question. So obviously things correspond on this plane to the higher planes. I was thinking, do you need to get something like, you know how like fire isn't going to look like fire on this plane, on the other planes? Could you get something on this plane that more resembles fire on a different plane for correspondence?
Yes. So the big thing about the elements is that when it talks about the element of fire, it's not talking about physical fire that we see. Fire is talking about, in essence, describing type of energy. And, that type of energy can manifest as physical fire on the physical plane, but on the mental plane, the spiritual plane, it manifests as other things. But it's more of an essence. So when we get the correspondences with fire or with any of the elements, they're just as much like fire as physical fire. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I'm a little bit afraid of fire. The big ones at least.
Okay. So I guess it would be really good to kind of analyze what about the fire. I mean, of course, there's probably memories associated and things that happen, but
Yeah.
those memories are also stemming from that energy behind what we see as physical fire. Initiation into Hermetics, as we go a little bit further, it deals with identifying more of the mental aspects and personality aspects of these elements and balancing them on our personalities. So you might find something in particular there that is going to have a pretty deep impact. Maybe.
Yeah, this weekend I was looking for like electrical fluids and magnetic fluids everywhere.
Yeah. Electrical fluids. Magnetic fluids. Gravity. Okay. Was everybody able to find access to the notes, the documents on Google Drive so far, at least?
Yeah, I read the Initiation to Hermetics one.
Okay.
I don't know if there was a Kabbalah one, but I didn't read that one.
Okay. Yeah, and it's still a work in progress, so
There's really good notes, by the way.
thank you. Trying to I guess make my own little version of the Cliff Notes, you know?
It's really good. I find myself staring at the cover a lot, like with the two people and the androgynous. Yeah.
Yeah. I found myself staring at the mystical Kabbalah one mostly.
Yes. So what?
So I did have a question with the initiation into Hermetics. The chapter talking about the mental plane, there was some concepts that I found pretty straightforward in it, but like there was something that like I don't know, I'm not really wrapping my mind around it, because he says humans are not the originators of its own thought, and he goes into talking about like egregores, like thought forms, and that thought forms don't have an astral shell, so they're in the mental plane, they're not actually in the astral plane. And like I'm a little confused because I thought like egregores were kind of similar to like servitors, and they would all be on the astral plane. Or I didn't realize there was such a disconnect between the two.
Yes. So that's a really good question. What we find dealing with spiritual energy is that, just like the book says, the higher that you advance in wisdom has a lot to do with the purity of the receiver. So the more pure that your receiver gets, the more that you start to become more sensitive at analyzing the granular details of this type of stuff. So yeah, I think all of us have lumped in servitors and thought forms as the same thing. But what he's actually showing you is that there's different levels to the Goetia versus the Archons, right? And these are all just names. You know what I'm saying? This could even be the difference between angels and demons. But essentially, the big difference that he identifies is that I think he said the energetic ones, the ones that are on the astral plane, are composed of pretty much a primary element versus the thought forms, which are composed of multiple elements. So they're a little bit more complex. I might want to verify that. But that was the main difference. One of them is more pure to its element, and one of them is more complex. Of course, the ones in the astral plane, they deal more with pure emotion, because according to initiation to Hermetics, the astral plane is mostly run by and run through emotion.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And so the thought forms, they're mostly run by repetitive thoughts. And again, like you said, the thoughts don't originate in humans. So oftentimes when these thought forms kind of touch us, we receive them. So this kind of puts a new spin on how we view reality. You know what I mean?
Big time.
When you look at the world at large and you see all these different things happening, it's not like people are, well, hell yeah, it is people getting an idea to do a certain thing, but the idea didn't originate from them. It has pressed upon them. So I would start thinking, where do these ideas come from? You know what I mean? And then we look at how somebody said the age of Aquarius a little bit earlier. So what exactly are these ages that bring these new ideas that press upon humanity? Like these gargantuan, Godzilla Cthulhu entities just kind of walking through humanity, spreading certain types of ideas. Pretty cool. But yeah, to answer your question, one is more purified to its essence, and others are a little bit more complex.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Having it broken down where thinking about it on like the elemental field versus emotional.
Agents that bring these new ideas that press upon humanity. Like these gargantuan,
Time traveler.
Oh boy. But yeah, that idea alone really brings up a lot of different things, because it's like, what are you? You know what I'm saying? Who am I? These ideas are not mine. When they reach my head, I start building emotions around them, and they influence my whole day. They influence my whole life. What I think I want to become, what I want to do, like, and we never stop to think where these ideas come from. It's kind of amusing to me. Greetings to the people in the chat. Shout out to Bunny Queen. Thank you for moderating. Matthew Watson says, I thought it was really interesting how the different body parts connect with the elements and the different fluids. I think I'm seeing how people can manipulate the physical. Exactly. So this book is really helping us identify these granular, minute differences and how these differences can be attuned with thought, because energy follows thought, right? Where attention goes, energy flows, they say. So if you know exactly what you're thinking about, paying attention to and moving it, you start to see that it has a physical effect on your environment. Okay. So He also touches on the chakras a little bit, just kind of a primer, tying all these different dots. Dale, how are you today?
Well,
Okay, that's cool. Liv says, I find it interesting how he describes the male and female energies as a kind of push and pull. Yes, the electric and the magnetic. And not only are they a push and pull, but they're actually like a part of the same thing. The image that comes to mind for me is like a black hole. On one side, it's sucking everything in, but on the other side, it's pushing everything out. So it's like they can't exist without it. I had some pretty interesting things that I picked up from the mystical Kabbalah. I'm just gonna pull up some of that. Okay, yeah. So the chapter on negative existence. Did everybody kind of get a good understanding of how she was describing the triple blackness, the Ain Sof, and the Ain Sofar, the veils of negative existence above the tree? Did everyone get a good, I guess, somewhat of an image of how she was describing it? Because essentially what she was saying is that it can't be conceived. Anyone have thoughts on that?
Could you elaborate a little on each?
Okay. The light and the limitless light. So essentially again, like I said, it can't be described because it doesn't exist, right? The whole trick with these are that since it doesn't exist, there's nothing similar to it, so it can't be described. You'll find this is the same thing in Buddhism when they talk about, reaching bliss and nirvana. It can't be described. It can only be described in what it is not. But essentially, I guess the image that comes to mind for that aspect is infinite space, right? It's just pitch black nothingness. But that nothingness is a substance. It's a thing, nothing, right? And
it's
something
something.
says in chapter 5 is how it's centerless, but it centers upon a point. So one way that I described it in our last chat on Thursday was that it's vibrating out in nowhere, but it's all accumulating in one spot. A good image is kind of like how you're making the that rock candy where you have just a glass full of water and you put that string in there and you have like the sugar and you mix it up or whatever. After time, if you let it sit, all those sugar crystals start to form around the string. It's like nothing becomes something, but something was there the whole time. It just didn't take shape. So Kether is like that rock candy, all the sugar particles of potential clinging together. And that pure moment of I am starts to reflect within itself over and over and over again, all the way to the point that, so the I amness is pure, but when you zoom in just a little bit, it gets a little bit more complex, and it keeps getting complex until at the very center of it is physical reality. So that kind of illustrates more to the point why we say that, or why we believe that spirit isn't with you.
Wow.
Spirit is outside of you, and your body is in your spirit, right? And your spirit's inside of your mind, and your mind is inside of the all, right? And it keeps expanding like that.
Yeah.
And that also illustrates how none of this exists in the first place.
Oh, it's nuts. I think I'm starting to understand. It's just like, yeah, like anything. If we were to zoom in on anything, you would just find a whole world in there.
Yes. And what also starts to make it a little bit more crazy is that it's the more condensed that we go into that potential, the more we zoom into it. When you get to about the Tifereth realm, the realm of the higher self, where the sun is, right? Nothing new under the sun. I keep saying that because that is the perfect line for Tiferet. When you're in the sphere of the sun, that is where all potential becomes physical, where it becomes concrete. So this is where you get the concept of multiple dimensions, at least the way people think about in science fiction. You know, you think there's another dimension of me with a red shirt. There's another dimension of me that is obsessed with, you know, phoenixes instead of unicorns. All that would exist inside of Tiferet. Now, beyond Tiferet, the potential is purely abstract. There is no physicality. That's why it's very difficult for people to go beyond the higher astral realm, because people aren't very good at navigating through their physical body, let alone their astral body, let alone not having a body. So this is another reason why people reincarnate, because they're not becoming purified enough to go beyond that. But yeah, nothing new under the sun as far as anything that can possibly be physical already exists in the astral plane, which is below Tiferet.
Wow.
Yeah, anything that exists on the astral plane makes a reflection on the etheric plane, which is the realm of Yesod. And then that becomes physical in the realm of Malkuth. And there are inside of countless Yesods, and inside of Hods, there are countless Yesods. Pretty much each sphere above has infinite number of the sphere below it. She also mentioned that in chapter 6, I believe. Yeah, the patterns of the truth. It's really starting to make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I understood the stuff on a surface level, but I'm really starting to get the hologram aspect of it, as they say.
Do you think that everyone who thinks that the universe is a simulation or a hologram studies this stuff, or you think they came to those realizations with a whole different approach?
It's hard to say, because the problem with science, and the reason that science doesn't really evolve as quickly as it should, is because scientists look only at the physical and they completely neglect anything else. So they only observe reality on the surface level. They only study reality on the Malkuth level, which is only 10% of the whole thing. But I'm sure that there are some who are curious enough to look in other places. So maybe. Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. What am I looking for? Jesus Louise. There was another part that was really cool.
We were talking about the negative existences.
Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. Negative existence.
That's probably his partners, man.
And the Ein Sof and the Ein Sofar. Okay, so she talked about how they are like algebraic symbols. Let me pull that part up. And this was in verse number 9. Of chapter 5. Okay, so yeah, so first off, in that chapter, she says, the mind can no more grasp transcendent philosophy than the eye can see music. In other words, what she's really illustrating is that, okay, I'll say that again. The mind can no more grasp transcendent philosophy than the eye can see music. So essentially, there's vibrations of all types, and we have different organs assigned to pick up those different vibrations. Clearly, the ear is designed to pick up the vibration of sound. The eye is not suitable for that, right? It's suitable for picking up other types of vibrations, which are light and color sensitivity, but it's not suitable for music. Likewise, she's saying pretty much that the rational mind is not suitable to understand transcendent thought, transcendent philosophy. The way that our rational mind thinks isn't suitable to accept ultimate reality, mainly because of the way that we're conditioned to learn. I was reading the other night Cyber Magic. a chaos magic book by Phil Hine, I want to say. No, Cooper. I don't know, one of those guys. But anyways, the whole premise of that book was that reality is set up based upon the words that you're taught and the words that you're used. That right there, that alone limits how you perceive reality. If you don't have the words for something, you can't build a concept for something. Just like how a lot of this Eastern philosophy comes from India and Asia, and they have words over there to describe concepts that we don't have words for. So it's very difficult for us to really understand what they're talking about. So likewise, when we're discussing transcendent philosophy, when we're discussing the negative veils of existence, the ain't so far, ain't so far, we don't have the words for it. We don't have the concepts for it. We literally have no idea what we're talking about. But even if we did, the mind isn't set up to accept that. So how do we get around that? How do we get to understand the background, the backdrop, the matrix for the tree of life? We use symbols. And we have to learn how to constructively use symbols to illustrate to our abstract mind. Okay, so what she's saying is the rational mind can't understand this shit because we think in linear thought. It has to be the abstract mind that thinks cyclical. It thinks in patterns, and the universe works in patterns. So the only way for us to see this thing is through symbol and through pattern. Okay. Thank you, Kenya. Peter J. Carroll, Cyber Magic. Okay, in verse 2 of that chapter, she says, the absolute is unknown to the state of consciousness, which is normal to human beings. So again, this rational mindset that we have isn't the best way to see reality as it is. So where were we at? I want to talk about 9. Yeah, so those 3 planes, whatever we think these things are, they are not, because these planes are unmanifest. In other words, there's nothing to compare them to. We can't even describe them. The 3 negative planes are symbols to conceptualize the idea. The idea actually transcends thought. It cannot be perceived by the mind. In a way, symbols hide the true meaning of a thing, while at the same time it represents a thing. The true meaning of a symbol is hidden until we can break it down into terms we can comprehend. Symbols allow us to use concepts in our calculations that would otherwise be unthinkable. The tree of life method is a method of using symbols that define each other based on their position and relationship with one another. So that points to another thing about this tree of life system. It's somewhat erroneous to think that we can work with just one sphere without knowing about the others, because we can do that with chakras. That method doesn't directly translate to Kabbalah. The way to be effective with Kabbalah is to have a equal level of understanding of each sephirah. So if you know a little bit about what Netzach represents, in order to really work the energy of that sphere, you have to know at least that much about the other spheres, right? So it's not really about being an expert. It's about evolving your knowledge equally. Just like when you go to the gym, you want to train your legs and your arms and your cardio. You want to kind of have a balanced evolution to be the best, to be, most efficient. Which is why we're going through this whole book. Another interesting thing that she mentioned in that very chapter was about this chapter was a chapter about beginnings. It was about origins. She's using this as a backdrop to understand the tree of life. So we could just talk about the tree of life, and if we left it there, this is going to lead to all kind of other crazy theories and people making up their own shit, which we see a lot of. But by her describing the negative veils of existence, we kind of get a bigger picture for this, right? If we just go off of science fiction, we're going to think that there's all these planets out here with all these different life forms and aliens that shoot guns and there's all these ships and shit. I never believed that was real. And, looking into this, if we take this seriously, we also see that that's a fantasy as well. But primarily because there's no thing That is the eternal state of the universe. But because nothing contains all potential possibilities of anything that could be, there has to be at least one point in that nothing that there is something. And that's what Kether is. Now, within that something, there's everything, right? Now, how do we make that happen? Well, this machine called everything, which is Kether, which doesn't exist, it's just a potential. This nothing contains different layers of possibility until we get down to Malkuth, which is where we are. Now, what she said was different minds go back different distances. So basically what she's saying in verse number 3 of this chapter is that your understanding only goes back to the origin of a thing. For example, most Christians and their religion, when you talk to them or ask them about the origin, they go back to the Garden of Eden. Oh, God was there, and one day he said, let there be light, and he created Adam and Eve. So their whole life philosophy is based off of that as their origin. And you ask some scientists what happened. Oh, just suddenly there was a big bang, and then heat and compression and fire, and the earth was lava, then it cooled. So people's whole understanding of reality goes back to their beginning. So what makes the occultists different is that we look to the beginning of the occult, right? These ancient philosophies, the Kabbalah and different things of that nature. And it shows us in the beginning, well, shit, there is no time. We're still in the state of nothing. But in the center of this nothing, we've manifested potential. And I've already said that twice. So just wanted to illustrate that point. Any comments on that so far?
Come on, TK, quit fucking with us, man.
Oh, man.
You quit fucking with me.
I don't know if that's intended for me or if that's random commentary.
Are you serious?
Uh-oh, we got two people talking to themselves. Or three, including myself. All right.
So I have noticed that.
What's that?
Oh, I have noticed there's a lot of there's these a lot of these concepts and stuff kind of contradict each other in like kind of like a paradoxical kind of way, but then there's also a style of, I guess in literature there's a style of thinking about English prime where you take the to be out. So like the I am, you take that kind of concept out and you're able to kind of fill in blanks, and it kind of removes a lot of the paradox out of language. So if I say like, I am a man, do I exist to be a man, or am I more than that? And how much more can you really dig out just by understanding the concept of me? Is that something you found an easier way, something like that, to kind of show the difference? My neighbor's being loud, I'm sorry. Show the difference, because these concepts are hard to break down. So is that like kind of any tricks to break down these concepts further?
Absolutely. That's crazy that you say that, because the book I was talking about, Cyber Magic, that's actually a huge part of that book. They actually have a whole 2 or 3 sections devoted to just what you said. They talk about how it would behoove you to remove the verbs to be, right? I am, I will be, are, whatever. That idea of I am or I am to be, to remove that from your thinking And that's probably going to be the best way to understand this these abstract concepts, at least to get close to the purity of their message. Because with the English language, it's so selfish, it's so me based, I based. And just the language alone cuts off our thought from the connectivity of the environment that we're in. So yeah, I think that if we were to even just stop for a minute and pay attention to the concept of I am, or I am to be, or this thing is, if we would really just pay attention to that, that would kind of lead to some very interesting questions with our relation to the universe. Damn, this shit is starting to sound all weird. Apollo Soul says, slightly off topic, but I just realized the encircled cross that Philip Cooper talks about in Basic Magic is the tetrapolar magnet from Initiation into Hermetics. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm starting to see a lot of parallels between Initiation into Hermetics and Mystical Kabbalah also. I wrote a few of them in the notes. At least in each of the notes, I found direct similarities. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, they all kind of like hitting each other off a little bit, man. I'm not gonna lie, a lot.
Yeah.
When you were talking about like how the sugar would just like break back down into like, you know, a grain of sugar, you know what I mean? And it just kind of like appears out of nowhere when you're watching after you've heated the sugar up. It made me think about I don't even know if it's that far in the Initiation into Hermetics, but the Mystery of Breathing chapter, and it really talked about like the thought and how the fluid was like like electrolyzed or something like that, and how that building up of that, you can kind of see that pouring over into something like coming into a grain of sugar or something like that, or Keta itself coming into existence. So that was interesting. I'm drawing a lot of parallels between the two as well, too. But that was just nice that, you know what I mean, you can see that our electromagnetic fluids, you know what I mean, if you can look at it in that form, can build up enough where so it becomes dense enough to become something that can be visible. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's how our thoughts pretty much, you know what I mean, impregnate themselves onto our mind and then make their way into the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes, that's the whole. Okay, so what we're learning about what you just said is that process of manifestation, of getting the electromagnetic fluids of our physical body and our astral body and our mental body in alignment so that our thoughts can begin to manifest on all levels, but not by accident, intentionally. And that's the whole art and practice of this science of the occult, is getting your thoughts to manifest physically. No, I mean, really, we're saying a lot of the same things from all my past videos or book reads, but like I've mentioned, we're getting more granular with it. We're getting more specific with it. We're really able to understand it as a science. Apparently the people in the chat, the members in the chat, took notice of whoever that was that dropped a load and flushed the toilet. It's super loud. I tried to ignore it. From the rooter to the tutor. So yeah, let me check out my notes some more because I picked a lot of stuff out of the Unfortunates book.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So the electric magnetic fluid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So electric being like, I guess, fire, magnetic being water, put them together. I mean, well, earth is all of them put together. where would be the air in that?
So, okay. Would anyone else care to answer this question if they know?
And this says air is like the mediator between water and fire. So I'm just wondering where, or like how could you notice where the air is?
Okay. Hold on.
Maybe that air is like where thought comes in and you're able to differentiate between, you know what I mean, the hot and the water. I mean, or the fire and the water. Maybe the thought, just having the thought is the intermediator between the two. You know what I mean? Because if you have the thought to be able to tell the difference between the two, then that's when you start to be able to determine, because everything is essentially one thing, and it's really the thought that's, you know, causing division.
Right.
I think that's so. You're saying just because I understand that there's fire and water there, already brings in the concept of air.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's synonymous with thought and air and all of those lining up together anyway, the feathers and all of that.
Hey, baby.
Hey, baby. So I have a visual representation of that concept. Red being fire, of course, blue being water, but it has to be separated. That's the white, that's the air. Now, the whole thing together is earth. But like you just said at the end of your statement, just knowing that there's a separation between fire and water, that's the air. That's why air is the mental aspect. That's why air is thought. It's the ability to perceive the difference. As a matter of fact, to illustrate what I said, just to make sure that I'm not making that shit up, if you continue in Initiation into Hermetics, where it talks about the different temperaments, of the soul. Yeah, okay, so it talks about the choleric temperament that originates from the fire, the sanguine originates from the air, melancholic originates from the water, and the phlegmatic temperament originates from earth. All right, this is on page 44 of those of you that have the physical copy. What that's talking about is what he's slowly doing is he's slowly relating these four elements to your personality, right? He's taking it from this general abstract, oh, fire and electric fluid. Nobody knows what that shit means. But gradually through the book, one step at a time, he's making. The reason he's telling us about these four elements is because he's trying to get us to identify them with ourselves, because he says everything in the universe is made out of the elements. Now, we can just take his word for it, or we can see it being demonstrated. So what he's talking about here on page 44, the choleric temperament originates from the fire element. What does that even mean? Now, he also says that every element has a positive constructive attribute and a negative deconstructive attribute. So let's look at this here. Dealing with the astral body, which is the fire temperament, the choleric temperament, that deals with activity, enthusiasm, eagerness, determination, bravery, courage, creative energy, right? All those positive elements. Now, the destructive elements of the choleric, of the fire, would be voracity, jealousy, passion, irritability, quarrelsomeness, and moderation. Now, when we deal with the air element, the positive things are penetrating power, diligence, joy, lucidness, absence of worry, cheerfulness, optimism, the need to study. Now, this is all starting to sound like some freaking astrology, right? Right? So we look at these different signs and the different positive descriptions and the negative descriptions of the signs. Has those same positive qualities that he described and those same qualities if it goes in the wrong direction. So what I'm saying here is, how do you get to know the elements? How do you get to know what they mean other than just this abstract idea of fire, water, earth, air, and whatever? He's relating them to qualities. Because remember I said, it's not physical fire, it's the essence behind that fire. The essence behind physical fire is the same essence behind being passionate. That's why in the tarot, you've got the wand, which is representative of passion, right? In all of magic, when you see anything to do with fire, it's dealing with that electric fluid. It's dealing with anything with those qualities. So how do you manipulate the electric fluid? You manipulate those qualities within yourself, within anyone else, within anything else, because everything has these elements in them. Does this make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
I was reading the mystical Kabbalah, and I read like quite ahead, and it has the sanguine and the chloric flipped. So in that one, he says the sanguine is the fire, or she, my bad, and the chloric is the air. Is that something to like really pay attention to, or is that just something I should disregard?
The fact that different wordage was used.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't let that become a stumbling block.
Okay.
If you just read between the lines, if you know that something is saying something, for example, Barden attributes the body, and then he says the soul, and he says the spirit. The soul is subordinate to the spirit. When a lot of us others are taught that the spirit is subordinate to the soul. Doesn't matter what we call it. We just know that there are two levels, some invisible part of it. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Unfortunately, some people do get stuck there, and that's unfortunate.
Okay,
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah, I wouldn't stick to that too hard. So another thing Dion Fortune talks about, as soon as I finish talking to you about that, the first line I see is, again, the words mean nothing unless an impression is conveyed. When we're looking at these different terms and these phrases to describe something that we can't conceive of, it isn't effective unless these words mean something to us symbolically. So to say words like nirvana and God and kundalini and melanin and all this, all these awesome words, we're just throwing buzzwords back and forth unless we can actually anchor it to some type of symbolic meaning to us. And that's really what separates the pretenders from the people that's really doing this work. When I say kundalini, or hell, when was what we talking about? If we say electric fluid and magnetic fluid, if you don't have something to really anchor that to, it's just going to be a word. So, yeah, really with these conversations, I really want to help elucidate as best I can to, so that we can all be sure that we have meaning to these words, or else they won't make sense, because these words are building upon larger concepts as we go through these books. As I was just saying with the 4 elements, we all know what fire is, but when Barden is talking about the fire, he's talking about that essence of passion, that essence of vigor, that essence of giving life, right, of warmth, or the negative concept of destruction and uncontrolled, chaos. All the elements have these 2 sides, though. Hanifa says, was each element born from the element preceding it, or before any element could be realized, fire had to be first and present, like fire and water need air to control the behavior between the 2. So yes, he does go over that. He says it in 2 ways. In one way, he says that fire and water are the only true elements. The other 2 are either the mediator or the combination. But ultimately, Akasha is always present first. And Akasha lines up with the negative veils of existence, right? The Akasha principle is very close to the description that Dion Fortune has for the triple blackness of space, right? I would even be willing to wager that Akasha comes out of the negative veils of existence. But essentially, according to the Hermetic philosophy, the Akasha principle, that 5th element, is the matrix. It is everything. It is everything, and everything exists within it, right? Again, it's like that glass of water, and we have those sugar crystals in there. The water itself would be Akasha, And the sugar crystals and the string and all that would be the elements that have come out of Akasha, right? Just pretend that the string was something that came out of the water. But the Akasha is the medium. If you're a computer programmer and you're designing a level for a game, all the ones and zeros that you're creating the bricks and everything out of is the Akasha principle. But to answer your question, fire is the first element that comes out. And then after fire would come air, which would be the space. Then after that would be water. And then, of course, earth. Yeah, but that's the order that it comes out of. Okay, let's see. I think we had a question in the chat. Alchemy Gold and Godflow 93 had a question. Let's see. Alchemy Gold asks, the elements function in the astral body the same as in the physical body. The soul is connected to the physical body through the tetrapolar magnet. Yes, that's true. Godflow 93 says, can Trav break down chapter 5, verse 7, those last two sentences? Let's see. Sure hope so. 5, verse 7. Oh, sweet. I have those two last sentences highlighted. So they must have been profound to me. So the last two sentences of verse 7 in chapter 5 says, Kether is the Malkuth of the unmanifest. The limitless ocean of negative light does not proceed from a center, for it is centerless, but it concentrates a center, which is the number one of the manifested Sephiroth, the Kether, the crown, the first Sephiroth. Well, I did explain that, right? The limitless ocean of negative light does not proceed from a center. So it exists as it is. It's not coming from anywhere and it's not going anywhere. It just exists, right? It has no beginning, has no end. Now it says, for it is centerless, but it concentrates a center, which is what I described earlier when I said that it is pure potential, is everything. It's nothing. It's so everything that it's nothing. But within that nothing is the potential for everything, right? Now, that potential literally manifests as something, and that's the seed called Kether. So there's this whole ocean of nothing, which contains everything. I think if you look at space and NASA and all that shit, they have like this massive field that's supposed to be the whole universe, and this is this black ocean of nothing. But supposedly it contains like all these different gamma radiation waves and all types of waves and shit. It contains everything, the dark matter and all that good stuff. But since it contains everything, that means that there is potential for life. And it just so happens that that potential for life manifests in the Milky Way, right? Which is Chakma, right? And within Chakma, if you zoom in a little bit, you got Saturn, which is the sphere of time, and it keeps going and going until you have Malkuth, which we know is Earth. But essentially, the last two sentences of chapter 5, verse 7 talks about how within the infinite nothing, there is potential for something, and that potential is Kether. Now that Kether is the Malkuth of the unmanifest. What does that mean? Well, let's look at this tree. This tree is the pattern of existence, which means that this is not only what we have here, but it's also as above, it's also so below. So the unmanifest, if it could be structured, would look like this. This would be Kether to the unmanifest. So see how the Kether of our tree of life, it's the entrance point for creation. So there's nothing, the nothing is beyond it. Not that there is nothing, but the nothing, which is everything. I know it sounds, but the crown is where that energy begins to take shape and become the physical universe until finally it ends here as manifestation. Well, if you take this whole shape and just kind of move it up so that it stacks on top of itself, the same way that our Malkuth is the culmination of all this in one spot. This Kether is all the unmanifest culminated in one spot. It's so unmanifest that it had to be something. It's so nothing that it had to be something. And that's what we have here. I hope that answers your question. Oh, goodness. So yeah, alchemy god. I think that was meant to be a question. The elements function in the astral body. Yes, and Franz Barton does say the same thing. The elements do function in all of our bodies, physical, astral, and emotional. They operate in the same way. It's just that there's different vibrations that we exist on. So this physical body is a much more dense vibration. So the way that we move, the elements and the electric fluid and magnetic fluid, it's more tactile, it's more gross, it's more concrete, right? I'm actually moving the liquid element with the things that I do. But on the soul, on the astral level, it's more subtle. On the mental level, it's more subtle, right? You can move countries with thought, but it has to be done in the right way, right? And every thought contains specific elements. So for me to say words that are inspiring, guess what element is contained in those words? For me to say something that tears you down and makes you feel depressed and sad and emotional, guess what kind of elements are in those words? For me to say something that makes you think and question, the air element is present in those words. So that's the mental realm. Same thing in the emotional realm. The elements are active everywhere. And when we learn to use them on purpose, we can really start to construct a path for what types of energy manifest in our lives. A lot of people want wealth, right? Wealth belongs to the earth element. So we would have to cultivate the right amounts of the earth element in the things that we do. And guess what? There are like 11 different degrees of the earth element. Look at the tarot, right? If you look at the meaning between the 10 cards of the pentacle and also the king of pentacles, well, shit, you've also got the queen of pentacles and the page and the knight. They all represent a different aspect of that energy. And guess what those line up with? The tree of life. So all the 10s line up with this guy, all the 9s line up with this guy, all the 8s line up with this guy. This is literally a science of how the energy works, literally. So anything that you want to know, if you just know how to break it down symbolically, work with it. I'm realizing now that this is some really heavy shit because it's out of my mouth and not just bouncing in my head. That could be, you know. Wow. Is everybody with me? Everybody in the video?
So is that, so when you talked about just now the tarot cards, is that like, so when you have like Chakma or Hod or something, and how they each have their own personalities and aspects, but then within each there is also its own tree of life. So like if you're using the tarot cards, so like say you use the wand, so you're focusing on fire.
Yes.
You can build your own tree of life with that. Is that how you would really try to symbolically interact with that essence?
That's a major way to do it.
All right.
Because, you know, there's, like I said, there's 10 cards that would line up with the spheres. Aces would be the Kether. If you really want to get down and funky with it, the kings correlate with Chakma. The queens correlate with Bina. The princes correlate with Tifereth. And then the princess lines up with Malkuth. Those would be the Yod He Vav He. Those would be the primary elements. Yeah, but yeah, that's yes. As a matter of fact, all 4 different worlds of the tree of life, and each one of them line up with the 4 elements. So the that fire stack tree that you mentioned there would be one of the worlds. Which one? I'd have to look. But yeah, there's a tree built from the earth element, one built from the water element, one built from the fire element. Oh my gosh. Etzeluth would be the fire world, so that would be the first one, the causal world. Bria would be the air. Yetzirah would be the water. Asaya would be the earth. That is so cool. It's really cool. So that being said, if you were to stack up the water element cards in the Tree of Life, that would represent the astral plane. Ooh, I've got some experiments to do.
I got some experiments to do too.
Yeah, I love it. There's literally no end to this shit, man. It doesn't get boring. It doesn't get old. Like, if you just know what the hell to research, you shouldn't be stuck anywhere. I mean, like, stuck in understanding, yeah, that can happen, but like stuck on one subject, you shouldn't be stuck on one subject at all. That would be silly. Unless that's what you want, you know. I don't know what everybody's doing. Everything's enlightenment. Godflow93 says, will we even need to do rituals anymore if we master these elements within us? Almost like we could just think it and it'll manifest. Yes, that's one of the cities that begins to develop the need to not really do rituals anymore because you're now in alignment with everything. I mean, yeah. Even I rarely sit down with candles and, you know, sigils, and, you know, I still do it, but not nearly as much as I used to because there's no reason to. Everything's already in place. Like, my rituals are done in a different way now. Much simpler and easier to convey.
You already know what symbols to go through to go to in your mind when you go through things. So you already have your formulas on how to make it through certain things. And once you get those etched out, I guess it does make it easier to flow through them.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. When you have the stuff, right. When you already have the correspondences and the symbols, and you already have that library built up, you just know where to direct your thought process. You know where to direct your energy. And throughout all this, you guys should be getting better at attuning your attention. And you're finding that your attention is the juice that's what causes all this different stuff to happen. Alchemy Gold. The name of the book that I just had was The Kabbalistic Tarot. It's by Robert Wang. You can get it off Amazon. Mine came plastic wrapped and it smelled brand new. I was very happy about that. So far, does anyone else have any questions? If not, then I'm probably going to reference back to some of the notes that I was taking on chapter 6 of Mystical Kabbalah.
Hey, Trav, real fast, I did have a question about chapter in chapter 7, verse 31, right at the end, where they're talking about the vision of the firmament between Bina and the infernal waters of the Leviathan. I didn't even know about the Leviathan until I saw it right there, but I just wanted to get your understanding on that little portion of it right there and how that ties into the Leviathan, and just me get some clarity on what the Leviathan is from your perspective.
All right, I've got the Golden Dawn handbook downstairs. It actually has the graphic of what she's talking about. The tree of life before the fall of Adam and Eve, and the tree of life after. Essentially, the Leviathan was contained. Everything was in order. And everything was kind of stacked on top of each other. The tree looked more complete. But the moment that Eve symbolically reached down to this fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which represents the Qliphoth, which is below Malkuth, the whole structure kind of shifted downward. And that changed everything, because that symbolic Leviathan that was contained in the Qliphoth now rose up, and it infected all of the spheres below the upper triad, below Kether, Chakma, and Bina. So in a way, Doth represents a barrier that evil cannot penetrate, that Leviathan cannot penetrate. But neither can man penetrate, because he's infected as well with this serpent energy. It's a double-edged sword, but this whole process is the purification of the soul and of the mind and of the body, so that you can go beyond those levels. And of course, that fall was the fall into physical reality, the addiction to the five senses.
I like that, man. I see how, like, Bina, which is like the understanding, and Chakma, which is like the wisdom, they come together, and it kind of does fall into like that Daf, which is like knowledge. But
Yes.
like, I was looking on like one of those trees of life diagrams in the back. I think it was like diagram number 3 with the 32 paths. And I know it's like different ways that people look at, the tree. But like, I saw what 13 kind of like dropped right there where Thoth was, and it made me think about the tarot deck in number 13 and its death. And I know that Chakma and Bina have draw parallels from the brother that was speaking last week to Adam and Eve, respectively. And it's just funny how that kind of just sees that Adam and Eve come together and they drop down into death, and death is considered knowledge. You know what I'm saying? But you don't have knowledge until you have understanding of the life cycle and then the death. That was just very interesting, man. It made me think about 50 Cent on just looking at a couple of like the tree of life diagrams in the back. They had the one that was like that showed the one with the mild pillar and the severity pillar and like the easy pillar. And it made me think about 50 Cent, man, making me think that he was a cultist or something like that, because it was like 50 said, like, that's got to be easy because life is hard. You know what I mean? And I'm like, man, this dude must have been on it or something, you know, the way he traverses through the industry. But
Right.
interesting, man. And, you know, right there, too, that knowledge, that Darth is kind of like Darth Vader or something like that, but it draws parallels to Asar and that middle pillar. And it's funny how death is on the middle pillar. It's not on the severity pillar, it's on the middle pillar.
Okay. But, as a slight correction, to be honest, the 13th path is actually the High Priestess card. So if you check out the High Priestess card, it represents, it is the feminine essence of magic itself. Behind her is the secrets. She's the veil that covers the face of God. On either side of her is the card of the magician and the fool. 2 paths to get there. I'm going to show you that photo here from this Golden Dawn book. See this thing? Here we go. Okay. So here we have the picture of the tree of life in the Garden of Eden before the fall. And if you notice at the very top, you've got the Elohim, God as the perfect individual with the masculine and feminine properties in total balance, right? And now looking at this here, you should also be able to see many similarities to the cover of the Franz Barton book, right? Initiation into Hermeneutics. It's essentially the same thing. If you look at your book, you'll see at the very top, there's the picture of the male and the female having sex in heaven, which is the same symbol of the androgynous balance. And then below it, you have the actual Garden of Eden. You've got the man and the woman with that androgynous figure in the center representing the serpent. Then you have him in the very middle, which would be you, the person practicing. But anyways, if you look here, you got that same photo. Now at the bottom, there's that Leviathan that was talked about. Now, do you see how it has his 7 heads? If you read Revelation in the Bible, it talks about the beast with the 7 heads and the 10 horns, the 10 kingdoms or whatever. That's talking about the energy of the Clipoth. Because that entire book of Revelation was symbolic of the same shit we're talking about here. But if you notice, you've got the feminine energy, Eve, the female, and notice how she's holding up the 2 pillars. Now that has Adam here, the man. Now he's able to hold up the rest of the kingdom itself. Everything is in total balance. Okay, so check it out now. You've got the Leviathan serpent there below her feet. So in order for her to reach down and dig into the tree of knowledge of good and evil, she has to let go of those pillars. You see that? So the resulting catastrophe looks more like this. So even, as we know, as above, so below, even that very act has fragmented God himself. As you can see now, he is the Trinity instead of that perfect union. And none of them even want to face creation anymore because things have just become imbalanced. But you notice now, the serpent is no longer in Clipoth. It's now risen up to the material world. And as you can see, his heads are now infecting all the different spheres of the tree of life, including the heart of man. And as you can see, Eve is now shifted downwards. It's almost as if she switched places with the beast itself. But there's a limit to how far the serpent can go. And as you can see, it's blocked off by the 4 angels that stand at the 4 corners of the earth. You've got the lion, which represents the fire element. You've got the eagle, which represents the water element. You've got the man, which represents the air element, and the bull, which represents the earth element. Clearly, you guys have studied enough to know that these are the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac: Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus, which also lines up with Yod, He, Vav, He, Jehovah, the name of God. But as we know, it's not a person, it's a formula. It's a structure of how manifestation happens from thought and crystallizes into solid form. And you see that sword, that zigzag 777 pattern, that's how the energy flows down from the tree of life. It's still effective in its pure form, but it takes work to get there.
Yeah, that was powerful, right? That was powerful.
Goodness gracious.
I've
Exactly.
never seen how she just drops it, man.
She does, really, like I keep saying, the mystical Kabbalah, you're not going to find it like this anywhere else. Just not.
So
read.
would you say that like the descended Eve into essentially like the clip off, would that be like as like Lilith as a dark aspect of what that energy represents? Because like the whole all truths or half truths, you have conflicting stories where Lilith being the first wife of Eve.
Mm.
So I don't know if that would be something like the dark aspect of Eve would be Lilith.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Because symbolically, Malkuth is known as the fallen daughter, right? So
Yeah.
the way I would say that shift that happened, like I said, because she reached down, the two pillars had to shift. Everything shifted. The fallen daughter. I think that Eve became Lilith as a result of this. So it created a whole new reality essentially. And in that reality, Eve becomes Lilith, and man becomes imperfect. It's almost as if that act created a separate dimension, so to speak. So to speak. Frank says the secret of middle pillar ritual being effective is that you hold all the correspondences in mind. The middle pillar, the balance of both severity and mercy combined, feminine and masculine combined. Liv says, interesting, telling how you're going to raise to godhood in this imbalanced world. Frank says, once you gain alignment, your mind can travel up through the four trees with four worlds. Once you can visualize the correspondences and manifest the very thought and intention. Y'all all right?
It's just a lot to think about, really wrapping your mind around it. It's like so much information in there.
Absolutely.
Just flow with it, yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna pull up this Mystical Kabbalah chapter 6, the Etz Chaim, Tree of Life. And by the way, if you guys haven't seen it already, I have a Google Drive notebook, and it's got all the PDFs and documents of the notes that I'm taking. Still a work in progress. I got most of them, but I'm still adding to some of them. So go ahead and check that out if you don't have it already. I've already posted the links on the website. Liv says you'll head your head trying to place all the pieces together as once, because when you start on one path, you'll see how everything interconnects and your mind will just spin. Absolutely. But it starts to make sense after a while because you begin to see the patterns that repeat themselves. And a lot of the patterns are talked about outright. The reason that these numbers keep coming up is because the numbers are the key to remembering, right? You see the 10, right? You see the 4, you see the 12, you know what these things represent. You see the 7, you know what these things represent. So if you can just keep that in mind and understand that all this stuff is pattern based, the abstract mind is pattern based. Just like the unfortunate said, we're not going to understand any of this with the rational mind. It has to be understood through the symbolic mind. Both art and logic have to be taken into consideration. All right, I'll be right back. You guys think of a question or comment. I'll be right back.
Thank you. As I said, where do we start? What book? This is it right here. Right. So I got it set up now. What are we doing? Scrying? Yes, I am. Okay. Leila, put me in position where she can see me. Mhm.
Yo, my mind's been being blown like crazy.
No, yeah, everyone's adding hours and hours of research that I now have to do after we get off this Zoom meeting.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm so excited to learn. Oh man. I definitely after this conversation, I definitely want to get into the tarot.
Yeah.
It can be, in my experience, I find like it can be a little overwhelming because like how are you going to memorize all these cards? But once you break it down into, like we're talking so much about the elements and everything, once you break down like the major arcana isn't too overwhelming because there's so much symbolism just within them. But then like all the lesser ones, like the wands and the cups, they all have their own element. So it just it makes it a little easier to like really wrap your mind around it.
Absolutely. It becomes so much easier to learn something complex when you break it down into small parts. I definitely want to say, in case anyone feels overwhelmed or they feel like this stuff is way too much to figure out, don't get discouraged because there really is no rush. This stuff generally takes people a very long time to learn, years. You know, like I said, I've spent a good 20 years figuring this stuff out.
Right.
But
Right.
you have the books, you have the answers, you have a teacher here, and you've got other people here who are learning it. You know what I'm saying? So don't feel discouraged. Like just keep at it. If there's something that you don't get, ask questions, Google it. But don't let it stop you or slow you down. Just dig in a different direction. You know what I'm saying? But don't give up at all. Don't give up. Now is definitely the time to be learning this stuff if you care. I really can't point you in a better direction than these two books specifically. But by all means, if you feel stuck somewhere, please ask me a question about it so I can help you get unstuck. Because I'm not stuck. But yeah, don't feel like this is out of your league or not for you. There's levels to this shit. You know what I'm saying? There's levels. You can understand it at a basic level and be effective, or you can understand it at a high level and be effective. But don't give up.
Trav, can I ask a question? I think this is chapter 8, 7 again, and it was like verse 8, the head of the micro prosperous. Could you like explain that figure to me?
Yes. The microprosopus. You said macro? Macro meaning the big man and micro meaning the small man. You said this was which chapter?
7 in the mystical Kabbalah,
Okay.
verse 8. Yeah, it's like the second line in the book.
7 and 8.
18, I'm sorry.
18. Okay. So this is 3 supernals, 18, right?
Correct.
All right. In the Greater Holy Assembly, verse 566, Mather's translation, we read concerning the head of microprosopus, and that means little man. That means the Adam Kadmon. That is the perfect archetype that man is crafted after. You know, in the Bible, when Christ returned, he was a manifestation of Adam Kadmon. But when it says microprosopus, that's what it's talking about. The reflection of God in man, the reflection of the universe in man. But it says, whose whole body is being taken as a glyph of the cosmos. From the third cavity there goes forth 1,000 times 1,000 conclaves and assemblies, wherein doth, knowledge, is contained and dwelleth. And the hollow place of this cavity is between the other 2 cavities. And all these conclaves are filled from either side. This is that which is written in Proverbs. And in knowledge doth shall be the conclaves filled. And those 3 are expanded over the whole body, on this side and that. And within them does the whole body cohere. And the body is contained by them on every side. And through the whole body are they expanded and diffused. So this is talking about that upper triangle of Kether, Chakma, and Bina, which actually creates a pyramid when you include Doth, right? Now you have knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. But essentially, Doth isn't part of the tree, as you can see here. It's invisible because Doth is the knowledge that fills the tree. Doth is the abyss that you climb up to get through all these different paths and these different spheres. When it talks about the conclaves being filled, it's talking about just that, these different spheres being filled up with the knowledge of them so that self can be known. Man, know thyself, but you only know thyself through knowledge. And through that knowledge, you get Chakma and Bina, which is wisdom and understanding. But the microprosopus represents the archetype of man in relation to the universe. Does that make sense? Or did you get something different from that?
Now, I was looking for clarity.
I was excited to see that this chapter also talks about the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna from Indian literature. You know, the 2 snakes that go up the Kundalini. Bunny Queen says the ghost of John is approaching. The sighing is getting louder. Yeah.
Good point. Slow down.
Frank says the microprosopus is the pentagram and the macroprosopus is the hexagram. Yes. So you really get a good understanding of what the energy of these 10 spheres represent by the images that describe them. Because again, these are things that go beyond words. They can only be understood by the abstract symbol. Kether is often referred to as the premium mobile, right? And mobile translates to the word movement, mobility. In the Kabbalion, we learned that everything vibrates, nothing rests. So in essence, Kether is the original vibration that creates everything else, because from Kether, the other 10 spheres emanate. And from that emanation, it's extremely simple, but it gets more complex, like I mentioned earlier. The further down it goes, the more complex it gets. But in that upper triad, the vibration of life is too simple to actually create organic life. That's why there is no organic life or any form beyond Tifereth. It's just abstract energy. That's why when you go into a deep sleep, you don't dream anymore. All you see is colors. Sometimes you hear sound, because in that place, there is no shape. But as Franz Barton said, Initiation into Hermetics, in the mental plane and the plane of spirit, there exists just thought forms. And in the center of these thought forms are the pure element, right? The essence of fire, essence of water, essence of earth, or whatever. This is what we have in those higher planes. It's way too simple to actually create organic life, but there is a type of life, the purest form, which is non-complex, which isn't combined with anything. It's as it is. And that's an example of the type of things you'll see in the example that homie gave a little bit earlier when he talked about having the 10 tarot cards of fire lined up as the tree of life diagram. But yeah, of course, the emanation process of the tree, it doesn't look like this. This is just a handy diagram to see how it all fits together. But a better illustration of this would be one of those standing pools, right? We've got the basin of water and the water flows out from the top and it goes down into the pool below it, and it's a little bit bigger and it catches the water. Then it pours out below it and it's a little bit bigger and it catches the water. That's more how the tree of life is shaped. So out of Kether, it flows down to Chakma, then to Bina, then it continues on down. And that's how you can see that each sphere contains all the spheres below it, right? It has to in order for it to pour down into the next one. A good way to think about that is like an acorn, right? The acorn inside it has an oak tree with acorns in it and more oak trees with acorns in it ad infinitum. Just like your DNA has the potential for copies of you that goes on forever. So when you're able to take these patterns side by side and see the similarities, this is what I mean by being able to learn how the universe operates through symbols, through the abstract symbols. chaos into order. All right, so yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse. Is there anything that anyone else needs a little bit more clarity on, especially on that chapter?
Actually, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm at work at the moment too. So, when things are emanating through the spheres, I know that time is the illusion as well, but like, is there a time frame? Like, what makes it speed up? What determines the rate at which these emanations can go through the tree?
Excellent question. So honestly, I did see a quote on that a little bit earlier. I'm gonna have to scroll back to it, but time doesn't really exist beyond the Tiferet realm. Let me pull that up here. Let me pull that up. Okay, the quote that I highlighted was, evolutionary time is an individual matter upon the inner planes and is measured, not regulated, by the revolution of the earth upon its axis. Damn, son. Okay,
So could you give me like an example of how you said it's measured but not regulated?
right.
Right. Okay.
As in, it doesn't depend on time, but we use time to calculate what's happening and when. You feel me?
Okay. Got ya.
It deals more with depth of perception, how you as an observer, your standpoint, and being able to see it clearly. Could you ask your original question again?
Yeah, like if it's time dependent, if it depends on if these manifestations depend on time.
Okay. Manifestation depends on the balance of the energies of the surrounding spheres. It depends on the balance of the surrounding energies. So again, it's showing you this process of how things manifest from Kether, and it has to bounce down that 7-7 Saturn pattern. If things are balanced in all the different realms that intention has to flow through, it flows through quicker. But if things are imbalanced in any one of these stopping points, it's going to get held up. So yes, we may use time to measure from point A to point B, but that doesn't regulate how quickly it happens. Like I was saying before, I don't really do the full rituals that I may have described in the past. I and a few others have expressed that it comes to a point where you just think it and it manifests. And I'm sure all of us have been experiencing that a lot lately, where you'll have a thought and you'll see a corresponding thing happen immediately. Well, the reason for that is that all the energies surrounding from you and that thought, the pathway is so clear that it manifests, right? Now, there may be other things that you want that take a lot longer. That's because the other energies and place that it has to come through still needs work. We're dealing with force that is becoming form, force that is taking a shape, pure force that is accumulating a presence. And sometimes it manifests through forms that exist already. But if the channel to get here isn't balanced, then you have to wait through time in order for that channel to become balanced. You have to expand the sphere of influence, essentially. What's that sphere called? Sphere of availability, that's it, from Ophil's books. Thank you for that question.
Thanks for answering. I really appreciate that. I don't know, but we want.
Another thing about the negative veils of existence, an interesting quote to remember there, she said, she said, we don't have direct access to it, but all things have their root in it. The quote is, although we cannot know its nature, we can know its effects. And an easy example is like the wind. You can't see the wind, but you know it exists because you see the effect of wind. we cannot perceive the origin, the triple blackness, or hell, even Kether, really, but we see its effect, right? How do you know God exists? Well, shit, there's creation. Hell, there's you to think about it. That's how you know it exists. We can't see the thing, but we can see its effects. And the same thing with magic. You can't see laser beams come out your finger, and you can't see rays going into someone else's brain, making them do stuff, but you see the effects. That's how you know it's real. That's what you can judge by the effectiveness. Is there an effect? Otherwise, you know, it's not quite it. Good stuff. That was a good question. Liv says energies can trigger your sense, also like carries sound so you can hear spirits. Yes. Yes. So sometimes when we talk about these thought forms or these astral beings or whatever, they are force. So these things communicating to you, the communication happens through a physical medium. It's not always a spooky ghost appears in the corner and says, "Ooh, I've come to tell you this." Sometimes that information is channeled through something physical. The energy gets to you in the easiest way possible. That's why I say your perception. If you are dense and hard-headed, you know what I'm saying, and you have to have a message like that, that's the only way you'll believe in spirits, you're probably not going to get any proof. But if you're sensitive enough to know, right, because you know about colors and numbers and timing, that's how you're able to interpret the signs from any little thing, right? That's how you're able to take the tea leaves on the glass and be able to divine the future or the energy. That's how you're able to do the tarot cards and all that stuff, because you're able to see what the force is trying to convey through form. You're allowing channel, you're allowing manifestation, you're allowing it to happen by giving it a place to happen, right? You can't prove magic to somebody else. You can only prove it to yourself. And the best way for me to prove it to people is by teaching them to prove it to themselves.
What I've noticed is that when trying to teach somebody else about it or tell somebody else about it, a good force to use is that music. If you share a common interest in music, and then like setting your attention to it and then pushing that out. Because I've had some changes with that too. I don't know if that happened to me or somebody else did that to me when I had my awakening, so to speak. But it's just, give me 1 second. It's gonna be 1655. It's just odd how that force can take a form. I don't know what I'm trying to ask. I'm too distracted right now. But I'll come back to it when I'm not at work. I'll think of some more questions.
It's a whole new world. I could have done that when I was at work.
Oh, I was gonna ask, as far as manifesting something physically, and say something you think of as impossible, say for instance, like growing wings, for instance, that would have to take multiple trees to go through to get there, or
yeah,
or like, is that just like the unthinkable? If everything is like that potential, like what kind of structure would that look like? Or like, would it have to be what you were saying with
That's it. 3 bags.
yes, yes, that's it.
Dropping everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. How would that look like? Like, how would? I don't know what I'm trying to ask. I'll have to think about that. I really have to come back to that.
Are you saying how would like the diagram look of the trees stacked?
338. I'm saying, like, would that take multiple feelings of that force? Or like how you were saying, how you have to release and actually understand the force behind things as well. So for instance, your unicorns that are showing up everywhere, we understand the force of that. if I wanted to be one in the physical, make one real, would that take multiple emanations? Would that take like multiple trees to get to, like how you were saying they're stacked upon one another?
Yeah. So the key with magic is the main thing you want to go for is quality, right? So it wouldn't take multiple emanations. It would just take some really, really thorough, really good ones, really pure ones, right? The more pure the intent, the more pure what you're doing, the stronger it's going to manifest. Now, also keep in mind, it's not like we're starting from scratch, because this is stuff that we do all the time. We just never pay attention to it. You know, you manifested the very job you're at right now. I manifested what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? We've all manifested. Hell, a lot of y'all manifested a conversation like this, a video series like this. We manifest all the time. We just don't always take into account how. So I did mention that the intention does come down through the multiple trees, right? But it's not like we're learning how to do it for the first time. So just to have a visual, it is going to kind of be stacked up like this, you know, one on top of the other, on top of the other, and it's going to have to keep trickling down like that. But we've got most of it covered. Most people know how to use their imagination to visualize something, right? That's the whole top half of the tree. Or we may already have a symbol down below. We might already have the correspondences. We might know that if I want to be a rapper, I need to dress the part and actually record music, right? We got that half of the puzzle down, but we may be missing what to do on that. Ooh. So the physical tree would really be the physical correspondence. The water tree would be all the elements of emotional correspondence. The air tree would be all of the aspects of the visualization correspondence. And then that fire tree would be all the aspects of the intent, of the intentional correspondence. So if you get all those correspondences lined up nice and, you know, with deep quality, with great quality, that's how you get your rituals done. Shit, that's awesome. I hope y'all took that into consideration, because I just learned something new from that right there. And Ophiel was telling us about this in the book, The Art and Practice of the Demiurge, right? When you line up those four worlds, you get manifestation. But what are those four worlds? What does the Yod He Vav He represent? What do those four qualities represent? This is amazing. This is amazing. Yeah, man. And it gets better. It gets better. It gets even more detailed. I like detail because it lets you know exactly what you have to do. And she says it in symbolic form, so she's not telling you what to do, but she's showing you what to think about to get what you want, or to understand this process. And the same thing with Franz Barton. He's not simply telling you how to do it. He's walking you through developing an entire vocabulary, a strong foundation to build upon, so you don't make mistakes, so you don't assume anything, right? Yeah, we're about to get into the actual 10 steps. So this is where the actual work comes into play as far as the Franz Barton book. We're about to go into the first step. So that's going to be the next 7 days. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, so let's see. What's good, Straight Panther? All right, so I just want to make sure that I can clarify or help with anything else regarding these last few chapters, because like I said, we're about to step into the first step of initiation into hermetics. And as far as Dion Fortune's book, I believe that we are about to get a little bit more detailed on this tree. We're not getting into the actual tree just yet, but we're getting into the patterns and the four worlds and the paths of the tree next. The paths are the lines in between the Sephiroth, of course. Yeah. Yeah. So speak now or forever hold your peace. We're about to jump into this initiation into hermetics. I'd advise everybody to read. And of course, if you don't have the time, that's why I'm trying to do these notes. Also, I'm not saying use my notes as a substitute for actually reading, but I'm trying to do my notes in a way that they're kind of like a cliff notes, to where you can kind of just catch the main points. You know what I'm saying? You might want to do that to read ahead. You know what I'm saying? Like to catch the notes and then read the chapter, or read along at the same time, or read afterwards to go back for clarification. But yeah, I should be caught up today with what we've already read, and then I'm going to be working on the notes for the next section. So please take advantage of the notes, take advantage of asking me questions. I really don't mind answering questions about this stuff on social media. I don't mind at all. I say that specifically about this content, some of the other stuff, But anyways, please, I know how powerful this is, so I really want you guys to take it seriously. That's all I'm trying to convey right now. But again, if you're getting overwhelmed, there really is no rush, because this content is going to be here. These notes are going to be here. All of this is going to be here, but I'm here presently for helping you understand specifically, right? But it helps me also to get a deeper understanding by going through this process again and again. So, I don't want to overload you guys with too many more books, but there are other books that can kind of help with the subject matter to help elucidate. You can hit me up if you're interested. They're not necessary, but if you do have the time, like me, and you do enjoy reading deeper, then there are some more resources to use, which I'll gladly give you guys some of those if you like. But yeah, if there's anything else you guys want to elucidate. Isaac, what's up? What's up?
Travis,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Kalipov. That where is that? Is that a place? Is that an energy stream? Is it consciousness? Are they here on Earth? What is the Kalipov? That's what I just want
to know. Okay. The Kalipov is the best way that I love to describe the Kalipov is you got a tree, but before it was a tree, it was a seed. So when you planted that seed in the darkness, the tree was inside it, and the whatever you call a tree before it's a tree was inside it, and it had to burst out of that shell, and it had to come up out of the ground, and it became a new thing. And that shell that the seed once was, it's the tree of life, literally the tree, The clip off is the seed shell, right? It is what was there before. I struggle to see any beneficial use of dealing with that tree, but that's essentially what it is. And it is very, think about polarity here, right? You've got the tree of life. Now the as above is going to be that triple blackness of space, the unmanifest. It is essentially the background. It's essentially the soil and the air and everything for that tree to grow in. It's the full nutrients. Now that clip off would be the seed of it when it was planted. So you've got on the top the unmanifest, and then below that which was. You got that which is, and then that which was is going to be what they call universe B, I think, or universe A. I don't know. It's the shell. It's no longer existing. It's the building blocks of what created the tree of life, but they call the clip off the shells, the husk. Does that help to elucidate? The tree of life as a tree, back when it was a seed and it cracked up out of that seed, that remaining shell is the clip off. Yes, no, maybe so. All right. What's up, my man? What's up, bro?
Hey man, what's going on?
What's up? Good
Hey, now I've been in the phone. Had to get another phone. I've been in the phone place for like 3.5 hours. I didn't know it was gonna take that long.
Aye.
But you know, I'm glad I made it because I know we did more than 2 hours last week. So I said maybe they're doing more than 2 hours this week.
Yeah.
So, see, I did have a question. Let's see if I can find it.
Yes. What's up, Straight Panther? Excuse me. What's up, Self Elevation? Hop on the stream if you can, bro.
Okay, it's on page 41 in Initiation to Hermetics. It's the that first top paragraph talking about basically, I guess maybe it might have been another page. It was talking about how you can use different elements and say how the elements coincide with the body, but it was talking about going into higher worlds or going into separate different worlds, but I guess depending on which element that you use.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted you to elaborate on that a little bit because I'm reading this stuff, man, but it's like, should I read it and wait for something to catch my eye? I mean, I'm reading it to understand it, but I think I'm still on like chapter 3, man, but I want to understand what's going on, and I'm getting it little by little, and it's all starting to, you know, correspond with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, certain these correspondences are continually coming up. They're continually coming up. But like I said, I'm getting it, but it's at a slow pace. Certain stuff I don't get, you know, so I read it and then I ponder on it. But I'm hanging in there, man. I'm not getting discouraged. But this is some to me, this is some complex stuff, man.
Yeah. Most of that's something I'm starting to realize too. Yeah, bro. Like I said a little bit earlier before you got on, man. Don't get discouraged. This stuff may seem complex, but when you really look at it, you got the rest of your life. to learn this shit. Most people take years, you know what I'm saying? We just kind of on a fast track. So what you're feeling is perfectly normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And by all means, you know, I'm happy to help as best as I can. Like
Right.
that's literally why I'm here. But don't get discouraged.
Okay.
As far as like the elements and existing on a higher plane, one of and another thing is if you haven't had a chance, just occasionally check up on the notes that I'm making. So I'm trying to make sure that these notes, you know what I'm saying, really dig in and flesh out what some of these concepts really mean.
Okay.
But one thing to really know about the elements is that, you know, of course, he's not really talking about actual burning fire, wet water. He's talking about there's a certain essence behind those elements. And essentially we use the description of the elements as they are to kind of point to the energy behind them. Right? For example, we know that fire deals with activity, it deals with giving life, it deals with, you know, giving heat, warmth, expansion, right? It deals with masculine type of energy, right? So what you notice is that you find the fire element in all things to some degree. We notice that in people that are Aries or Leo or Sagittarius, Sagittarius, they have strong fire element in their personalities, right? So that's an example of the fire element manifesting in a human being, right? But everyone has these qualities to a degree. And likewise with all the other elements, there's some people who are very in tune with their emotions, who are very good with emotional intelligence. Some people who have a tendency to get depressed. Some people who have more of a tendency to be psychically enhanced. These people are more in tune with the water element. And likewise, cohesion, right? Sticking together, gravity, coming together. These are expressive terms of the earth element, right? Likewise, a person exhibiting earth element qualities is pretty good at these things. Accumulation, right? Earth element people are pretty good at accumulating money or accumulating things that are beautiful or luxurious, or at least they have an eye for these things, or they understand these things. They're also very hard workers, right? This is a certain energy. And if you can use the law of correspondence and look at the energy behind, say, a Taurus, or the energy behind a Virgo, and look at the energy behind people who are wealthy, and you look at the energy behind hell gravity, you start to see similarity behind these things. That is the earth element. That is the magnetic fluid that he's talking about. That symbolic thing there that connects all these things.
Okay.
Now, when to answer your question, when you talk about drawing the analogy to the human body, and you'll gain the knowledge of how to establish parallels to the elements, and you'll see that the analogy of the human body is justified. How to connect this to the higher planes. You got a physical body, and the earth element is your flesh. The water element is your blood. The fire element is your spirit. The air element is your breath and your thought process, right? That's the four elements in the physical body. And he talks about the astral body, which is primarily the emotional plane. So the emotional plane makes up your personality. Now, your personality also is composed of the four elements. Now, like I described, depending on your astrological sign, shows you everyone has the four elements in them. Everything has the four elements in them. But your astrological sign is going to show you which you have a predominance of the element in. So it's like, say, if you got 100% of what you can have, fire signs got a large percent of fire. And it goes on to describe in the book what fire is like in the astral body. Let's see.
I think that's where I'm at now. Talking about the astral body and the astral plane.
Yes. And I enjoyed that part. That's a good part right there. I want to say that is
43.
43.
Oh, you in the Dion Fortune. Oh, okay, no. You on 43? Page 43, the soul, the astral body.
You're right. Right. 43, 44. If you look at 44, and this is where we talk about the elements in the astral body. Down there towards the bottom, he says the choleric temperament comes from the fire element. The same.
Yeah.
What he's really describing right there are the astrology signs.
Right.
He said every element has a positive attribute and a negative attribute. The positive attribute is the constructive. The negative attribute is the deconstructive. So let's say right here, if we look at the earth element, this is where he's talking about the phlegmatic temperament. That's the earth element, basically. The earth element in the astral body, he says it looks like respect, reputation, endurance, you know what I'm saying, determination, seriousness, firmness, punctuality, reserve, sobriety, right? Thoroughness. He's describing what the earth element looks like in the astral plane, in your astral body.
Okay.
And that's the description of your zodiac sign, right? On the constructive side. Now on the deconstructive side, shallow, careless, indifferent, tardiness, bashful, right? We know that a Taurus,
I'm
he's
tardy.
we know if Taurus is on the deconstructive side, on the negative side, they get kind of lazy. They like to eat all the time, right? Hungry Taurus, that's the stereotype. That's the Taurus in the deconstructive mode. That's the earth element in the deconstructive mode on the astral plane. Now, on the mental plane, there are thoughts that are constructed of just the earth element. Those qualities I just described, the thought of, I shall be on time always. That's an earth element thought, right? If I give a speech that inspires you, that's the fire element in my thought, right? And it's talking to your fire element in your thought. If I say something that gets you depressed or in your emotions or makes you feel good emotionally, that's the water element. If I say something to make you think, that's the air element. Me being a Gemini, a lot of the thoughts and words that come out of my mouth are infused with the air element, right? I don't even have to try because it's in my nature to do so. So when he's talking about the 4 elements on the multiple planes, this is what he means.
Okay, so that's like you said, I'm a Taurus, so I do my best not to be late, and I'm real neat. Sometimes I'm too neat or try to make things perfect, and it's like, yeah, you wasting your time, you know. But I get it now. I get it now.
Yeah.
And I also I've been going back and forth with these 2 books with the Kabbalion, and it's coming together. Like I said, it's coming together slow, but when you read that Kabbalion and you come back to the books, it's like everything start to coincide with everything.
Yeah.
You know, so that's helped me out a lot too.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that the Kabbalion is actually an introductory text to initiation into Hermetics. I think
Yeah,
they were
it definitely seemed like it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And that's what's helping me to understand what's going on. And then the fact that he continues to repeat certain things over and over.
Right.
I like that. I like that. That repetitious, I like that.
Right. So if we were to describe repetition to an element, what kind of thought would that be on the mental plane?
That would be an air.
I'd probably say that'd be an earth, right? I'd probably say that'd be an earth element. Because I think of nature, right? I think of accumulation.
Oh yeah, cycle. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
So that's another example of the element within another plane.
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking about when you were just explaining the Kalipov just now.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, you know, when you were talking about that bottom part, that piece, you know, and then you're talking about the tree. But,
yeah.
So yeah, that's what's going on. Like I said, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm getting it, you know. But you know how we Tauruses are. We slow.
But thorough.
Yeah. So I got me a new phone, and I think it's a Stylo 6. It sits up by itself. It got a little thing on the back where it sit up by itself. So now I ain't got to worry about holding up to the book and it keep falling down. So, you know.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah. But okay, that was all I had for the moment. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Zacchaeus Steed says, so I'm wondering why exactly was Bobby bringing up going back to the triple blackness of space? So as I described a little bit earlier about the triple blackness, about the Ein Sof, the Ein Sofar, and the Ein, that is the nothing, right? That is the eternal existence of reality. That is all that exists, really. You know, because Kether doesn't really exist. It's a potential. It's as if within all of nothing, and I've already said this probably about 3 or 4 times through this talk, if all of nothing was nothing, but it contains the potential for everything, right? It's a paradox. If it contains the potential for everything, that means at some point within that potential, it will contain life. It will contain the potential for all of life. And then that seed is where we have Kether. And then within Kether, we've got the Milky Way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The rest is history. But I would say that Bobby keeps referring to that because that is reality. The Ein Sof, the Ein Sofar is reality. It's ultimate reality. Kether is not reality. Where we're at now is illusion, right? This is the effect of an idea. That's why the Kabbalion talks about we exist as a dream in the mind of the all. The mind of the all is the triple blackness of space. Kether is like, damn, what if life existed inside of me? That would be Kether right there. That's the Big Bang. That question of what if life existed, or whatever the hell question, it all culminates in one spot. That's why the Unfortunate Book, Regardi is talking about, what do you say? The void is, it emanates without a center, but it centers upon Kether. That's exactly what he means. It centers upon the idea that, what if life existed, or whatever the question may be that sparked Kether to happen. But I imagine that Bobby keeps bringing this up because it's ultimate reality. And the more that you learn to identify with this as reality, you're less affected by the illusion. Because people who identify with the illusion are caught up in the illusion, right? Anyone who's caught up in any of this, you can pick your flavor. This Baskin Robbins 49 flavors of illusions you can be addicted to. But if you addict yourself to any one of them, you all wrapped up in it. But being not wrapped up in any of those, you can see it from an outside perspective and see that it's just humanity being humans. You know what I'm saying? Monkeys will swing from trees and eat bananas. That's what they do. Here's what it is. Goodness. Godflow 93 asks a question about astrology. He says, when you say that, do we use tropical astrology or sidereal Vedic astrology? I mean, use what's comfortable for you, I guess. I'm more versed in regular astrology. I have a book on Vedic astrology, but I hadn't cracked it open yet because I haven't had a need to just yet. I'd like to get into it. I imagine you'll find a lot of similarities. Since what we're all dealing with now is Western occultism, I'm mostly focused on Western astrology. But from what I'm seeing and hearing, the Vedic stuff is really interesting and really accurate, maybe even more accurate. Bunny Queen says, I've been so into this live, I haven't even hit my blunt yet. Damn. True indeed. Alchemy Gold says, Gemini season has helped so much in my studies. Mine too. Helped me with a lot of stuff, actually. The world can't handle Gemini season, man. Maybe Cancer season can help us cry some things out. We'll see. Yeah. 3:33 Eastern time.
So Trav.
Yes.
I was also reading an initiation to hermetics. Maybe it was in chapter 3, talking about the levels, like whenever you lead a body and you go on, and it was saying depending on where you're at spiritually, here is where would you end up in the astral plane.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to read it over again though, but that was kind of interesting because it's like, well, where do you have to be Well, I guess wherever you are, you'll end up at that same place where whoever else is on that same level with you. But my question is, well, what happens then? Like, we are able to still ascend at this point, right? Because from what the book was saying, it was like, this is where you will be. So are we still able to ascend on whatever level it is that we're on, whatever we pass?
How many people's on there?
Yes.
Okay, what
That
do you
has
count? Oh, I see. So
who's that?
there's some of them.
It's got a lot to do with your level of
Oh, okay.
I want to say purity, right? Now when we hear the word purity, we get this idea, probably some of this idea. But when I'm talking about purity, I'm really talking about a concentrated identification, a concentrated identification, a knowing of an understanding and a knowing of what you are. Maybe not even essentially who you are, because we're not anybody. We're multiple things at once. But an understanding of what it is exactly that you are. I've said this example before, you know what I'm saying? If I go to the school, you know what I'm saying, and talk to my son and a bunch of 4-year-olds, I'm a different person, right? I'm talking to my lover, I'm a different person. I talk to my boss at work, different person. If you talk to your grandparents, it's a different person. So each of these are actually aspects of what you call you. Which one's the real you? There isn't one, right? When I'm playing my video games, I'm invoking the Mars aspect of myself. From doing things that involve sex, I'm invoking the lunar or the Venus aspect of myself. When I'm doing this shit right here, I'm invoking Mercury myself. This relates to the tree of life. So that essentially there is no self because we're different aspects. Now I am doing some research, but I'm almost one goal isn't to consolidate all of those into one fragmented. Honestly, I'm sure that's the goal. To be the same individual in all circumstances. And I think that this is actually getting to the higher self. So to get back to what your question was, when most people, according to Hermetics and Kabbalah and what I've researched so far, when you pass on, what's passing on is these fragmentations, these fragmented pieces of self. Your Mars aspect goes back to the Mars realm. Your Mercury aspect goes over to your Mercury aspect, right? There's no central you that goes to heaven. Heaven is all 10 of these spheres, but you split and you fragment. Most people, because most people don't know themselves. So the different pieces of them separate, and the piece that belongs to Earth comes right back to Earth. And more than likely, since they're so attached to their bodies, they come back with it. So I said the first part to say that it's possible that if you consolidate all these cells, maybe you won't be so fragmented when you pass. Maybe when you lose this body, you're able to retain a majority of your consciousness instead of sending it all back to these different archons, so to speak. Being in contact with different spirits or different people who passed on, or even say like Dion Fortune or Ophiel or C. Freeman L. These people are available for communication. And guess where you'll find them? You'll find them in their appropriate spheres. I believe that it is possible for parts of you to stay in certain pieces. Indian philosophy alludes to this. But yeah, I think it has a lot to do with how much you purify yourself, how much you know yourself as you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes me think about like certain spiritual work that I do in the morning, which I don't do every morning, but certain spiritual work I do in the morning. And when I go to work, it's like, how can I describe this? Because I pay attention to the modes that I be in. I listen to certain music and I see that it puts you in certain different modes, but I've come to a place, like I said, when I do my spiritual work, where I'm neither here nor I'm neither there. I'm here, but it's like I'm not really on either side of the fence, if that make any sense.
Yeah.
Like I'm calm, and I might can listen to music, or I might see this or see that, and it just doesn't have no effect. It's like, okay, I see it, and it's like a calmness. It's just a calmness, like you don't react I guess you can say, to the stimuli around you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
almost the
that's,
same piece.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Now I was gonna say, and I was gonna ask you, is that the real you, or is that just that's another aspect of you?
I would say that's closer to the real you. I would say that.
Because it feels different.
Yeah, and this is the you that you start to meet the more that you meditate. Because just like I said, that triple blackness is reality. And it's this Kether in the tree of life that's the illusion. Well, I mentioned that these different aspects of your personality, whether it's the Mars or the Venus or the Jupiter aspect or the solar aspect, that's where they return to when you pass away. Well, why is that? Because they never were you in the first place. That's why they go back there. That's why they go back there. So could it be that when we're working with these elements in ourselves, we're purifying ourselves? And maybe what that means is that we're defragmenting ourselves, consolidating these pieces, taking off these illusionary parts. Wow. Good shit.
Right. Okay.
So when you take off these masks, then there's nothing left but who you really are. I mean, when you think of Christ or you think of Buddha, they acted the same no matter where they went. He didn't go to his neighborhood and start talking different. He didn't go to the church and start talking different. He was him the whole time because he was his true self. That's what enlightenment is. Woo! Getting rid of these masks.
Wow. Okay. Because I really didn't know. I didn't think I knew what it was, but I knew it was something different because, like you say, you put these masks on. It could be people you don't even know that don't even care, but you just have to be a certain way around them. Like you were saying about your grandparents and kids and all that. Oh, you have to be a certain way around this kind of person, that kind of person. But and I realized that, and I catch myself, but this state of mind, it was just like it didn't really matter. Like, you're the same for that period of time. You're just the same. Nothing really affects you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there. Okay.
And check that out. You said nothing really affects you. So if you're in the realm of cause, you're the one that's causing the effects. You're not the one that's being pushed around by effect. Another huge key there.
Got it. Okay.
Exert your influence.
Right.
Let me show y'all the realm that I'm in right now that I'm having trouble to release. That I start my video. But can anybody guess if I can? How do you flip the camera around? Ew. Jeez.
Hey.
Hey. All right. Can anybody guess what realm I'm in right now?
Yes.
Oh, I can guess. It's yellow. Got a lot of yellow
What's that
to
sign say up there? Save time.
Wow. Are you working?
Yeah, I'm actually at work, but it's like right now, I'm crossing over into the sphere of what is it? Not Bina, but Pod, and I can show you the effects of it slowly manifesting. If I can, how do you flip this freaking camera? Oh yeah, okay, I got it. So
hey, that's Tipperest.
We just had a clearance start. So here's the clearance sign that just started. And if you look, there's speckles of orange around me. That it's bright, and my vision's getting blurry around the store now. It's like I can actually see it fade, like in real time, and like my heart's beating fast. It's like all this yellow still around me. It's like still bringing up like, the traumas of it that are residual, and it's just like I'm still here when I'm still trying to let go. So it's like I can tell there's still something like bothering me in that aspect. It's definitely manifesting differently. 1815. So I'm gonna go back on mute though. But, yeah.
Woo! So we got Tifereth, the realm of time. Yellow. So all that yellow is invoking a certain energy. So just like the 4 elements, just like it's not actual fire, when we're dealing with the Sephiroth, clearly you're not invoking the Sephiroth, but by using correspondence, you're invoking the energy of that Sephiroth. So Dollar Tree, that company, is invoking the energy of Tifereth, solar plexus, right? Exactly, Liv. So this energy is being presented. It's accumulated in that spot. The whole business, anytime you have anything to do with it, it's invoking that energy of Tifereth, the savior, the crucified one, died for your sins. Dollar Tree, Dollar General is making these prices low for you. They doing it for you.
Right. Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, this is and just like I said, the more we, we touch upon different topics, it still seems to lead back to what we're reading now, what we're studying now, in one way or another. For me, anyway.
I've had an NDE, what they call like a near death experience. And so to an extent, I understand about being in the middle, because my body was obviously dead or just not there, but my consciousness was in a totally different realm where I've seen lots of beings and people. I don't know if they were people or beings, but like I was conscious, and it was funny because the whole time I was thinking, I hope this isn't a line because I want to go back. But I was dead and I totally didn't know where I was. I was not there. This happened when I was 12. I didn't put that together until I was 28 years old, that I had what they call a near death experience, until I looked on YouTube with this guy named Eben Alexander, where he explains that the phenomenon is real, that you can leave your body and come back and sort of die and come back. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's
absolutely,
that's like that's my understanding of the true connection of the other realm, because of that. That's what woke me up to all of this spiritual stuff, because I never understood how you could literally not be in your body and be in another realm and have the entity bring you back to your body and tell you it's not your time, it's not time yet. Meanwhile, the whole time I'm thinking about like real mundane things like, how did I even get here? What's going on? And I'm barely putting it off. It's putting it together, and the Kabbalah makes sense now. Anyway.
Yes. And see that experience that you had perfectly illustrates what Dion Fortune was saying in the beginning of chapter 5 with this negative existence. Basically, you said that experience really kind of gave you a foundation for all this occult stuff. You know what I'm saying? One way or another. Why? Because it gave you a reference point. In the beginning of chapter 5, Dion Fortune says anybody can read these words, but they don't make sense to anybody who doesn't have a foundation or a reference point, right? When you talk about near-death experience, you talk about, that feeling of being in that place, not knowing who you are, but, having these questions. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't describe that to someone who hasn't experienced something like it. This is when you get all these people saying that this stuff isn't real, it's a hoax, whatever, you know what I'm saying? They don't have a foundation. They don't have anything to link it to. But you have more than just words. You have an actual experience that you can brush back on.
Yeah, it totally blew my mind that because I'm also a nurse and I work with hospice patients, and a lot of times they're so scared they're gonna die, and I said, you know what? I've been on the other side and it's beautiful. I know it sounds messed up to tell them that, but it's like, just let it go, because this realm, it's like exactly like the Cabal says, you started from the aim, you don't know what it is, and you're here in the physical realm just to go back. I think it's like when they say we're light bodies, and we can try and physically manifest up to this. Because one thing I did notice about, if you look at the NDEs, there's this thing of love that is profound, that I cried because I realized that humanity doesn't have that level of love. They speak of love. Even when I tell my parents, they laugh at me. It doesn't make sense. But there's this thing of love. I don't know if I'm digressing, but there's this thing of love that wakes up the soul when you cross over, that connects everyone. And it's not romantic love. It's a love where when they say in the Bible someone smacks you on the other, you're willing more than to let them smack you on the other side. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. But anyway, I'm ranting now. I don't know what my point was.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, shit.
I'm just seeing the connection, like that's why I don't
Shame.
fear death. I don't fear death. I don't fear anything. I mean, I don't say I don't fear anything. I mean, I don't want to get shot or killed. But like, I'm open to anything, I'm open to anything, with when it comes to spirituality, understanding, because once you realize that there's more to this physical world, I just started crying. Because I'm like, oh my God, all these people doubt, is there life after death? Is there this? Is there that? When there's, oh my God, the other side is beautiful. When it's time to go, I told my kids, when it's time to go, play some Cardi B, play some just woo woo, because mama is out.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I'm gonna let you go because I'm just gonna ramble and talk. All right, go ahead with your lesson. I'm sorry.
No, you good. You're perfectly good. Thank you for that, actually. I mean, shit, I'm guilty of not wanting to come back here every damn day. When I go to sleep and I feel that I'm coming back, sometimes it takes me a whole hour to get out of bed because I do not want to come back to this place. But I have to
It
because
sounds like me. I actually wake up early to do my spiritual work, but I also wake up early just to, when I wake up, I don't just get up. I lay there for a while, like, how much more time do I have until I have to get up? But it's working out.
It's like, it's not I think it's like, it's not getting there, it's the journey. So like life is to be incarnated. Because I listened to this lady named Dolores Cannon, and she speaks about death, life after death, or I forgot how it works. And she just says it's not so much the end, but the journey to the end. What do you take with you when you get there? It's life is to be enjoyed, it's to be enjoyed, but you're not afraid of death either. Everything is just one. Everything is one. Everyone is one. And it's just one big love. Like I said, it's love. That was my whole foundation. When I meditate on the heart chakra, yam, love. And I really feel the love. And I was lucky to find a friend of mine at work who also meditated, and she can manifest love too. It sounds crazy, but she waved her arms and she pushed out an energy of love that's intense, that made me drop on my medicine cart. And we started crying because she said, don't tell anyone. And I said, no, I've felt this love before. It's also the same love you can use in your lower chakra as an orgasm. And you can, it's just a love, it's just a creation. It's an energy of creation. It's an energy that's powerful. Anyway, I keep mentioning love. I just don't know how to explain what I wanted to tell you guys. But just go on. I'm sorry. I digressed again.
Thank you for sharing that.
I got a good Deion Fortune is it Deion Fortune? She got a good one called Through the Gates of Death. I haven't finished reading it yet, but it's pretty good though.
Yeah.
Actually, it reminded when I first started reading it, it reminded me of I think we talked about this before. What dreams may come. I said, well, maybe that's where they got the movie from. Because it seemed like, from what she was saying and from what the movie was like, it was like, well, that's probably where they got the movie from. But it's really good though.
Yeah, I've heard of that. What dreams may come. I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah.
Perfect. This see, and that's another. Oh my God! Again, chapter 5. I recommend taking my look at chapter 5, or at least my notes, because she's talking about not only the reference point, but also having the right words to explain what we're talking about. It can only be described symbolically. When we talk about love at this point, it's just a symbol. The Greeks, you know what I'm saying, Hebrew, when they had the word love, it was actually, there was multiple words to describe the different types of love, right? Everyone knows that. But see, in America, in English, we don't have that. We just have one word, love. So it's easy to misconstrue, right? So what you're actually talking about is a place that has a name, and the qualities feel the same as if a person were in love. You know what I'm saying? But it's really hard to describe because we literally don't have the words for it. And this is just like explaining this tree of life, in particular the top sphere.
So could love be described as like we're talking about the 4 elements? Could it let off attributes of love, just like the fire lets off the fire, the water lets off the water, air and so forth? So that's what I'm thinking in my mind.
To be honest, we're starting from the bottom here. We're working our way up. But yes, unconditional love is one of the primary elements. I want to say water, but shit, I'll just research it. Pretty sure it's on page 333. I advise not to skip ahead as much as you cannot skip ahead.
I think it is water. Water is very like I go to the beach and I do a meditation with the heart chakra, the yam, and my heart feels like a ball of energy, fire, and I swear I hear thunder at night when I'm in the beach doing the meditation.
Yeah. So there's 4 qualities of God, basically, and this is where we're getting to towards the end of this. And the 4 qualities are omnipotence, omniscience, which is all-knowing, all love, and then immortality. Now, those 4 things are the purest aspects of the 4 elements. I'm pretty sure omnipotence, which is all-powerful, is the purity of fire. I'm pretty sure that omniscience is air, all lovingness is water, and immortality is earth. Because one of the essences of earth is that it's immortal. When you think of nature, it's not gonna stop. You might subdue her for a little bit, but she's always going to step back up, regardless. You know what I'm saying? We can control the weather and build buildings and machines and all that stuff. And they may have you convinced that we got these bombs and we're doing all this stuff, and oh no, we're polluting the earth and we're destroying the. No, we give ourselves way too much credit. This energy has been along way longer than us.
Yeah, because the more I cut grass, the more it grow back.
It will never stop. Your lawnmower will break down. You know what I'm saying? The lawn companies will dissolve, right? Countries will dissolve. All this shit's going to go away, but nature will always remain. She's patient, unlike us.
Right.
That's the immortal aspect. That's the prime element of earth. And then you've got all loving, that eternal lovingness. That's the water element. Just like water will always return to itself. At some point in time, the water that you drank today will make it back to the ocean. At some point in time, the water that fell out of the sky is going to make its way back. It's patient because it's eternal. Omnipotence, all power. That's the fire element. Oh my goodness. It doesn't care who's wielding the power, but power will be exercised. And of course, wisdom, omniscience, all knowingness. Knowledge is its own realm. Knowledge is just knowing. And it can be accessed. There is actually a level of existing where you don't have to think about shit, where you just pull it when you need it. And I can say that shit because I've learned how to tap into that. And this is like that genius realm. And you can get that shit through meditation and working with these elements in yourself. Please don't take my word for it. Find out for yourself. Come October, you're going to be telling me. Love it. Facts on facts on facts.
Okay, there we go.
Rob Harrison, how you doing, bro? All right. Anybody else here on video that want to just say something, or do I need to call people out? Uh-oh. Yeah, I see you. Nobody? Anybody?
Yeah, I'm looking at the mystery of the Tetragrammaton. Could you touch on that just a tad bit? And tell me how that coincides with, I'm sure I'll find out, but.
Yeah, so the Tetragrammaton is the magical formula. It is the essence of all the structure of magic, period. It's the 4 elements. Tetra means 4. Grammaton is the image of the name, the 4-letter name. And what it actually is not an entity, but it's a process. Jehovah, Yahweh, Yohevavhe, air, fire, water, earth.
So it goes back to say when you learn how to master all of these. Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
got
you
it.
learn the process of manifestation. You learn how to bring it from intent down to material.
Okay.
All right. So I love answering questions and all this stuff, but nobody else really has too many questions about what we've read so far. I think it's probably time to for us to part and for me to continue working on the notes for the next portion.
I'm glad I caught some of it, man. Cause I was in that and then he had both of my phones, so I couldn't even get, on either one of the phones, and they was transferring and all that. And I was like, well, maybe they'll be on there a little bit longer. I didn't think I'd be in there 3.5 hours, but he said I had so much stuff on my phone I had to download and all that other stuff, but I got it out the way. I did get something in, so.
Yeah, 10 gigs on your phone?
Nah, 60. It was 64, but I was on.
Oh,
it was
shit,
on.
my bad. I'm thinking back in 2000 era. My bad.
Yeah, but it was. But as long as it took, it was only 13 gigs out of 64 that was on my phone. I had that phone for like 3 years. I've been downloading stuff like crazy.
I was close.
Yeah, you was. But yeah.
Shit, I need to get me a new one, honestly.
I was forced to get a new one because I don't be doing the every 6-month thing and the update. I had that phone for 3 years. It's been through a lot, and it just started acting crazy, man. So I went ahead and got me one. It's updated. It's bigger. It got a little thing to hold it up. So, But yeah, man, I'm glad I did catch you guys. Keep doing what I'm doing because, like I said, it's starting to make more and more sense as we do these videos and I do my reading and everything is starting to come back around. It's happening. It's not happening as fast as I would like it to, but I can be patient. at least I know I'm making some kind of progress. You know, and I have to tell myself that every day, like you're making progress, you're making progress. But
Yes, it's true. And just look, like I said, people they spend decades learning this stuff. Like as far as this book study little course thing, it's only been 3 weeks, and I've talked to some people before and now, and it's like the level of understanding is freaking mutant. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying, they're out here manifesting all kind of crazy shit, but hearing them talk about what they're talking about before and their thought process today, it's insane. So I can just imagine how it's gonna produce over these next couple of months. Long story
right,
short, I haven't seen a group like this. I have not. A study group on initiation into Hermetics and mystical Kabbalah with someone who knows what they're talking about. I haven't seen that. So this is really this is something very special, honestly. So yeah, man, you're in the right place. This shit, I love it.
yeah, man. It's some things I was reading. Was it in here? It was talking about maybe that no, that was on Facebook. I think that was the other group, Thor and them. They was talking about how things are, and we talked about it as well, how things in your life start to get shaken up
Mm-hmm.
for you to become the way you need to come to. Well, let me tell you, man, there's some things that's going on right now, and I'm just like, I'm doing my best just to hold on. I mean, it's not what somebody would think it would be. Like, it's just terrible stuff going on, but it's definitely, I'm definitely being shaken up right now. You know, I'm definitely being shaken up right now, but I'm trying, you know, I'm just trying to stay with my studies and keep everything balanced out. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let y'all go, man.
This helps with even situations like that, because one thing that I'm seeing is that everything is in place, everything is in order. Like I used to tell myself just to feel good, you know, everything's gonna work out, da 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 da. Everything happens for a reason. But these books prove that. These books actually prove that concept, that everything is balanced and works out the way that it's supposed to. There is universal harmony, and it's showing you here. There's no random things. Like even though something might be happening that I think is like, oh man, what's going on? This is crazy. Da, da, da. It's supposed to be that way because we're stuck in time. We can't exactly see the full thing. Like we have to go through it. But when you zoom out and look at your whole life, you see the things that have happened that have been put in place as a balance, and that process is still going on. If me and my childhood was made to make me who I am today, what's going on is happening to make me who I'm gonna be. This is all together perfectly. That takes all the worry and doubt out of my system.
That's been helping me out because I've been doing what you do. I've been saying the same. I've been trying it out. You know, it's been working for me, but not as much as you've been doing it. But when something happened, I said, okay, that's cool. That's good. Like, you know, I just got that new truck and somebody hit it. So I wasn't like, oh, I'm about to get paid. I was just like, okay, this is supposed to happen. So that's cool or whatever. That's cool or whatever. You know, I have to keep reminding myself and telling myself, like you said, everything is falling into place just that's like it's supposed to. So when I say shooken up, I don't mean like shooken up like depending on the way you look at it, everything is falling into place exactly where it's supposed to. It's just how you want to look at the way things are going.
Yeah.
And I'm satisfied with that. You know, I'm satisfied with that. Not 100% all the time, but you know, I try to be most of the time.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna definitely I think I looked over some of the ones that you had a week ago, the notes. But I'm gonna definitely check them notes out.
Okay. All right. I'm still adding to chapter 7 on initiation in mystical Kabbalah, and I'm still adding to the initiation and the Hermetics ones. But my goal is to have everything caught up to where we're supposed to be next week before the meeting comes to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, so
all right, well, Trav, rest of the family, I'll see you guys.
all right.
Good talking to everybody.
All right.
Bye, guys. Thanks for the talk.
All right, Winter.
I'll take care.
Don't work too hard.
I'm trying to get out of here.
All right, everybody. Take it easy. I hope everything works out.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
All right.
See you
All right,
guys.
good to see you.
Hey
Peace.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Here, guys. Have a good one.
See everyone next week.
Yes.
We're on time this time.
I think there was one more question in the chat from Alchemy Gold. She says on Mystical Kabbalah, page 16, verse 13, evoke images of the mind. I've dreamt of unique symbols that to this day I don't know what they mean. How do I tap into that knowledge? Okay, so verse 13. Yeah, so that's a really, really powerful one. I would probably point you to the direction. Also, verse number 8. Look at that also. Alchemy Gold. But yeah, essentially, you think about the process of creating a sigil, and what you're doing is you're taking that complex concept, that intent, and you're distilling it down into a basic intent. And then you take that basic intent and you make a sigil out of it, and you cast that sigil. And the process can be reverse engineered, but just like with a computer or so, when you compress a file too much, sometimes it cannot be uncompressed because too much of the quality has been lost. However, with a sigil that you don't have the meaning to, what you're actually doing, because remember we talked about in initiation into hermetics that every thought, everything in the mental realm and the astral realm has an element at the core of it. So even thoughts, even certain thoughts have an element at the core of it. What you're doing when you're creating a sigil or when you're creating a servitor or anything like that is you're condensing it down to the basic element of it. Except now the element is only infused and wrapped around with that little bit of your specific intent, but you're creating force. And the sigil is just an image a form to represent the force behind it. So if you're seeing a sigil in your dreams, you've got to analyze the force behind it. When you meditate on the sigil, you're gonna pull up the force. You may not get the exact, you know what I'm saying, ritual that somebody created for it. Most of the time, if this is actually somebody who is creating sigils and knows what they're doing, you're probably not going to get the exact formula. But you don't need that because those are just logical words. When we use these formulas and these rituals and shit, we're using our logical mind to get to the abstract mind. Now, after the sigil's been condensed down to a feeling, you're actually getting it in its purer form. You're getting the abstract version of it. You're getting the essence, the essential part of it. So you to understand the sigil, you want to meditate on it. You want to see what kind of feelings you pull out of it. You want to see what kind of things it brings to the abstract mind. You really want to get deep into it, open yourself up, and try to deduce what you're getting from it on your right brain. So you're not going to get, oh, it means this. You've got to intuit it. Yes. So yeah, it's highly possible to reverse engineer a sigil just by meditating on it, because essentially the sigil is the element of the energy behind it. Godflow93 says it's dope how the matrix is falling apart and we got this group for any clarity or guidance on how to move through this time. Absolutely. I was up all night last night watching a Instagram account that is just a collection of a bunch of Karens losing their minds in public. I'm just thinking to myself, like, I don't know, when you see all these videos back to back, it almost looks like a mental illness that these people have. But it's like, I don't know, they can't take what's going on. So it's like they have to lash out in their own way. But it just looks like people's minds falling apart, all across the country. It's very interesting. Karen Goings Wild, I think it was on Instagram. But yeah, not only them, like, yeah, exactly. Hanifa says fear driven. It's fear driven. You see, Now you're getting the energy behind their actions. You can disguise it with any kind of words. You can say, oh, I felt threatened. Oh, what do they say? You look suspicious, or go back to your country, or any of these things that these people say. Where we get tripped up is we're listening to these people's words, right? When people, what was another one? A lady was running around tearing down these protesters' signs and their boards and stuff. And it was, had pictures of George Floyd and talking about what happened. And she's tearing it all down. And she's all saying, oh, this is all a hoax. It's sponsored by George Soros or whatever. But it's like, those are the words she's saying. But look at the energy behind it, right? She really doesn't want these people out here talking about George Floyd or police brutality, or she doesn't want these people doing these things, just like most of them don't want it. But what I see with a lot of these conservative and alt-right people, whatever you want to call them, it's all fear-based, and they hide behind key phrases and key terms. And for some reason, these phrases and terms that they hide behind, they work because people are dense and they just listen to the word, but they don't analyze the action. So it's like they try to argue. You can't argue with them because they don't even believe the words they're saying. They're simply operating from their emotion. But if you learn to see the world from that higher degree, from the realm of cause, you can ignore the effect. I know you're going to behave in this way because I know the cause behind you. I know that you're afraid, so you're going to act out of fear. I know that. So I'm not going to battle you with logic. If anything, I'm going to deal with you on the emotional level. That's how you bypass these people. You don't take them seriously on the logical level. They're behaving like children, so you have to treat them like children. I'm just saying, don't get caught up with the foolishness. So yeah, appreciate you guys. This is a wonderful time to be alive. Let me tell you, this is a wonderful time to be alive. Wonderful time. People who, and I'm talking in personal life and the world at large, you're seeing people who have been on top and who didn't respect that position, and now they're switching places with people who've been on the bottom and who didn't deserve that position, right? So you see things flipping around. I'm seeing that in my life happen. It's a wonderful thing. I think the Bible talks about this time saying the head will become the tail and the tail will become the head. The lender will become the borrower. All these things. It's the pole shift. We're experiencing the pole shift, right? It's force. The force moves the form. We get caught up because we look at the form. Don't look at the form. Look at the force behind the form. It's not the physical appearance. It's what's behind the physical appearance. So yeah, there's a 20-second delay. I'm about to close this out. Love you guys. Thank you for being here. I am very passionate about it. Although I'm a little bit tired now because this is my third day up, but I'm probably going to go to sleep after some Fortnite or some Apex. If you guys have any questions, please ask me now. I'll wait that 20 seconds to see that 20-second delay. Ifadeo, thanks for being here, bro. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any more questions because I definitely want to get to them. Like I said, please use the website, you know what I'm saying, themajorsociety.com. Use the Initiation into Hermetics page and the Mystical Kabbalah page. Ask questions. Go ahead and type out anything that came to mind for you. Go ahead and use it. Let this be a resource for you. You know what I'm saying? Take advantage of it. I'm there every day. If you've got questions, I'm happy to answer them. I want you to understand this stuff, but you will only understand it as much as you want to. So, you feel me? All right. So yeah, looks good. I don't think anybody's got any more questions. I think I thoroughly beat this horse. All right, everyone pay attention to the Betelgeuse star constellation. I mean star, because it's located on the crown of the unicorn constellation Monoceros. Interesting how the attention is transferred from Betelgeuse and it points to Monoceros. There's a force behind this form. What's good, Grace? All right, y'all. I'm out. Peace.